Are you looking to refine your sales team and increase your company's revenue? Leading your sales team is an ongoing improvement process. Join Harry Newhan from Eric Lofholm International as he interviews top sales managers in the world. Discover the best practices that rocket them and their teams towards success. Boost your recruitment, motivation, and training techniques, leading you to build a top-producing, synergetic sales team. Welcome to CSI for Sales Managers.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the super podcast here with Dr. Donald Moine and myself, Harry Newhan, with continuous sales improvement for sales managers and the best practices. I want to thank you all for joining us today. We're excited to have this special guest with us. And Dr. Moine, and so that I don't make any mistakes here, if we could start off, just tell us a little bit about yourself first, and then I got a couple of questions here that myself and my audience are certainly excited to hear some best practices from you because of your vast experience and knowledge in this industry. So share with us a little bit about you first.
Okay, great. It's great to be here. Hello, everybody. My name is Donald Moine. You can connect up with me on LinkedIn. I am a sales and marketing psychologist. I sometimes say I've got the greatest job in the world. It's a very unique specialization for a PhD psychologist. I worked my way through 10 years of college as a salesman. And when it came time to do my PhD dissertation, I decided to study my favorite subject, which is salespeople and sales superstars. And I studied a lot of psycholinguistics in college, which is the science of language. I love words. I love the power of words. I love the power of stories, metaphors, word pictures. And so I used tools that had never been used before from psycholinguistics to analyze videotapes and audio tapes that I was able to make of sales superstars in a wide variety of fields. And my dissertation actually got published, which is something that rarely happens for PhD dissertations because most of them, quite frankly, are very boring. And I was teaching at the University of Oregon, where I got my PhD, and I started getting invitations from company presidents, from entrepreneurs, business owners, to teach what I had figured out in all of my PhD research. So I started doing seminars around the country and then internationally. And that was about 35 years ago. And I've worked with all kinds of different industries around the world, have had some really exciting times. I've been into some very unusual places. Everyone's interested in salesmanship. I've done sales training in Indonesia, Europe, Canada, Australia, beautiful places, met some great people. And I've known Harry now for over a year. He's an incredible guy. He's got a tremendous show here. So I'm real excited to be here with everybody and to share some ideas that if you use them, I guarantee you can help you build a much more powerful, lucrative sales force.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing us with that. I'm sure there's some exciting stories about your international travels. We'll have to save that for another time, but it's exciting to hear that you had fun and that you're sharing your wisdom, not just here locally, but everywhere. And that's because people want to know, they're hungry for this information. So let's go ahead and start off with our first question. What do you feel, or what do you think the three most essential skills that a sales manager must or should master to build a highly profitable sales team?
That is a great question, Harry. The first skill, the one that I now think with a lot of years of experience is most important, may surprise you because I became famous for some breakthroughs in sales training. But actually, before training, the most important thing is you have to hire the kinds of salespeople who can really excel in your business, in your sales environment. There are many different types of sales environments. There's an old saying that he's a great salesman, he can sell anything to anybody. She's a great salesperson, she can sell anything to anybody. That guy can sell lipstick to a chicken. That's something I used to hear. And, it's really not true. because, well, for example, just a couple quick examples. In retail sales, in many retail sales environments, you might make 30 sales a day. You might make 40 sales a day. And you need someone who's personable, likable, high energy. You want them to always be doing something, looking for a customer to talk to, customer to help. Or if there's no customers around, you want them to be straightening up the pants or rehanging you know how people mess up clothing in a clothing store. Um, and so they don't need a lot of patience. But on the other hand, if you're working in a different sales environment, I've worked with people. Harry's in Michigan. One of my clients in Michigan was AT&T Information Systems. We were selling $1 million plus telephone systems to major corporations. Wow. It's a long sale. It takes months to make. It's very complex. And I've helped Toshiba sell $1 million plus MRI machines, magnetic resonance imaging machines. So you work months on this, and you may only get several sales a year, but you make a big commission. And so you need a lot of patience. You need the ability to master certain technical knowledge that you may not need in retail sales. There are other sales environments that are what I call relationship oriented. So for example, I worked with National Steel. And when you are selling steel, it's a commodity product. And across steel companies, the prices are pretty similar. The product, there's not really that much difference between cold pressed rolled steel if you buy it from this company or another company. Every company says we're the best, we're the greatest, but the truth is they're really flat steel is not that different. So why do you buy it from one company over another? Because you've built a relationship with this salesperson. In some cases, you've known them for years. Their kids go to the same school your kids go to. You may belong to the same clubs. You may belong to the same golf club, for example. So it's a relationship. It takes a certain kind of person to hang in there for years, slowly build that relationship. People tend to be very loyal, and people don't switch jobs a lot. So you need other characteristics. So the first thing you want, Harry, is to hire the kinds of people who will excel at your kind of selling. There's a saying that you can't polish a tennis shoe. And really, if you take someone who's in a certain kind of sales environment, who's doing well there, they may not transfer well to a different sales environment. For example, insurance. I've worked with a lot of insurance salespeople. I'm working with about 31 of them now. And insurance is an intangible sale. You can't see it. You can't touch it. You can't feel it. You have to make the product come alive in the customer's mind. You compare that to selling something like real estate, where in some cases the house almost sells itself. I mean, you own real estate, Harry. I own real estate. You know what that's like, buying, selling property. Or you're selling luxury cars. You're selling a Ferrari. You know, you can have them slide into those leather seats. Check out these beautiful lines. Feel that power. Feel that 449 horsepower, that acceleration throwing you back in your seat, the G-forces. Smell that new car smell. You don't have any of those tangible things to rely upon in selling insurance. So it's a very different kind of a sale. It's a conceptual sale. And the second thing, what are the three things a sales manager needs to build a powerful, lucrative sales team? Number two is powerful, focused training. We'll talk a little bit more about that later if you would like. But once you have the best salespeople for your industry, you want to give them the very best, most powerful, state-of-the-art scientific training possible. And at that point, if you've hired the best people for your industry, you've given them really powerful, focused training. They're usually making you a ton of money. The final challenge, it took me a few years to figure this out, is how do you keep them loyal? Because with some companies, they just bleed salespeople. They're like a training ground or a recruiting ground for other companies. So you put a lot of time and energy into these people. You don't want to lose them. How do you compensate them? How do you get them feeling good about their job so that they're excited to come to work and put out their best efforts? So the final challenge is compensating them, making them feel great, because you can compensate them with more than money. And if you do those three things, you are going to have an awesome sales team. It will be one of the best in the industry. It's going to help your career. You're going to get advanced. You're going to get advancements. And it's kind of like building a great sports team. It's not, folks, it's not easy. Harry and I know a lot about it. We both worked as sales managers. We're both doing sales management work right now. Harry and I are both in the trenches. So we know about this from our practical lives. But, it's not easy, but there are proven methodologies that can really help make the job a lot easier. They're experts to work with. And it's a really exciting journey because you impact people's lives. You help strengthen our economy. So I really enjoy doing it. I like working with teams. And now you have it, Harry. Those are the three things that a sales manager needs to build a killer sales team.
So I'm excited you said the number 3 one, the compensating for their efforts with recognition. And I'm of the school that, and I've learned, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, that money actually is not in the top 3 or 4 of the number one or the top reasons why somebody stays with the company. Recognition and a feeling of belonging are usually number 1 and number 2. So I'm really glad that you brought that up, because a lot of times, most of the time, it's not all about the almighty dollar. It's feeling belonging to. Is that about right?
Yeah, there's a lot of truth in that, Harry. Many salespeople are very money motivated, so we don't ever want to underestimate the importance of that. But in sales, you have to put up with a lot of nonsense. People in sales get more rejection than any other people in society. Even the superstars. I've worked with people like Ben Feldman, the world's greatest life insurance salesman. I had a chance to interview Joe Girard, the world's greatest automobile salesman. And even they here know a lot. And most people can't take it. And that's why a lot of people, they realize I can make a lot of money in sales, but they don't want to take all the rejection, the no's, because sometimes people can even be rude and they can be abrasive. And so you have to pay them well. It's one of the great things about being in sales. I mean, I've worked with people, I know you have also, Harry, that they just barely got out of high school. Maybe they didn't even get out of high school, and they can make, in the right sales field, you can make several $100,000s a year. You can make as much as a doctor or a lawyer. In some cases, make even more. So monetary compensation is important, but folks, let's face the truth here. Not every company can have the highest salaries. 50% of the companies are going to be above average in salary and benefits, and 50% will be below. And so you want to pay them well, but you don't have to bankrupt your company. And it's like Harry was saying, recognition, reward, feeling valued, making them feel like $1 million, that you listen to them, you value their ideas, you want their input, because it is a team sport. Selling, building a sales team is a team sport. Making them feel good around their peers, and also even around their spouses. That's something a lot of sales managers don't think about, but making them feel good around their spouses. So if you can have company events, picnics, award ceremonies, and you bring them up on stage, the people who are, the superstars of your field, the Tiger Woods, the LeBron James, the superstars, Peyton Manning's, and give them recognition, and their spouses feel like $1 million, and they feel like $1 million. So those things are very important. And together, it's just a great way to keep people loyal, to keep them happy. I call those things psychological vitamins, because just like we need to take vitamins every day.
I like that.
We get vitamins in our food. We need psychological vitamins every day. The fact that someone complimented you 2 years ago and said, "Oh, Harry, you are an awesome sales guy. You're a sales champion." That felt great 2 years ago. But, it's like the fact that you took vitamin C 2 weeks ago. It leaves your system. You need it again today. We all need continuous rewards, but it has to be genuine. It has to be a genuine, sincere compliment. You don't want to, because people can recognize it when you're not being sincere. So folks, I really want to stress that, be sincere, be authentic, because people know it, they feel it, they resonate to it, and it's very powerful.
That's awesome. You mentioned Joe Girard, greatest salesman in the world. his where he broke those records to get in the Guinness Book of Records. The car dealership that he worked at is only about 3 miles from where I grew up and where I currently live.
Wow.
And it's so his name was a big buzz thing around here as I was growing up. So that's kind of cool. Let's go ahead and go into the next question, because you mentioned one of the number one things was hiring the right people for the right environment, the right space. So when it comes to hiring top salespeople, what suggestions do you have for the sales manager on doing that process?
I got several suggestions, Harry, and one of them is to use psychological tests or psychological profiles. They've really come down a lot in price. When I first, got into doing this work, a lot of them were like $300, and now you can get free profiles. You get free tests. And when I say psychological test, I don't want to scare anyone. Folks, you cannot fail these tests. It's not A to F kind of a test. We all have our own unique personalities. And so it's more about learning about yourself, learning about how to recognize personality traits in other people so that you can sell to their personality. But with that being said, we know that there are certain personality traits that if people have them, they are much more likely to excel in certain sales environments. So there are some very inexpensive and really great tests that you guys may be familiar with. One of them, probably the most used one in the world, is the DISC test. You guys can look it up on the internet. The DISC test. D is for dominance, I is for influence, S is for sociability, and C is for compliance, which in that system really means paying attention to facts, details, and analysis and research. Another one that's very popular today is the BANK test, BANK. You guys can look that one up. It's similar to the DISC. And these give you additional insights. They will help you to figure out things about people that might have taken weeks or months on the job to come out. And you can get this information in a few minutes. So I encourage everyone to use a psychological profiling instrument like that, especially sales managers, when you're hiring people. Because most people these are what are called self-report tests. You fill out a list of adjectives and adverbs, most like me, least like me. Most people are very honest. It's surprising, but there have been accuracy tests, reliability tests to evaluate these instruments. And most people are very honest because they don't want to end up in a job where they're not going to be happy, where they're not going to do well. But there's one problem, I have to say, with these tests that it took me a number of years to figure out. There's something that's very important. You touched on earlier, Harry, that is not measured by 99% of the test. And that is something that I wrote a cover story for Psychology Today about this. I call it money hunger. Money hunger, that most great salespeople have a need to make money. And that's what enables them to put up with some of the abuse that you get in sales, some of the things you have to do that most people don't want to do. And the tests do not measure that. And I have been looking for tests that do measure that. And I found a company that has that kind of a test. And they've combined it with their version of a DISC or a BANK test. And it's amazingly accurate. They're using it with companies where it's very hard to hire people, like, for example, insurance. In the insurance industry, folks, they have one of the highest dropout rates of any industry. After 2 years, probably about 80% of people who sign up to sell insurance just can't cut it. They don't make it. And the good news is, though, I'm a very optimistic person like Harry is. The great news is that if you can stay in that industry, in insurance, for 5 years, you're probably going to be making a lot of money. So they have a very high turnover rate. It's very costly. In most businesses, the average cost of a hiring mistake is over $10,000.
Wow.
The cost to run the ad, all the time you have to spend interviewing people, and then you bring them on board, the cost to onboard them, add them to your personnel system, teach them your system, train them. It's very expensive. In some companies that I've worked with, they've actually quantified it. The cost of a bad hire is over $70,000. So you want to do everything you can to avoid that. And this this company that I'm working with them now that has developed this test, the test for money hunger. It's not just money hunger; it's also drive combined with that. Uh, it's I'm amazed at how accurate it is, and they allow you to test instead of charging per test. They allow you to use as many tests as you want for a year for only $2,000. So I'm going to be rolling this out and introducing it to more people. But if anyone's interested, if you'd like some help in hiring the best people, you can connect up with me on LinkedIn. I'm Dr. Donald Moine, or send me an email. And I don't want to get any more into it here, but I just want to let you know it's available because most sales managers don't know about this and they're looking for solutions. So it's a new technology that's really producing some exciting results. So those are some tips, Harry, about the hiring process. And the other part of it, I don't know if we have time for it, but I could share some insights on interviewing if you have any questions about that, because you don't want to hire just on a test, folks. As great as these tests may be, you have to do interviews. And the truth is, most sales managers don't do interviews very well. They could get much better at it. So, if we have some time,
let's
Harry, I could
actually roll
discuss
right
interview.
into that. What mistakes are many sales managers actually making, and how can they be corrected when they're interviewing people for a sales position?
Yeah, that is a great question. You know, most sales managers are good at doing one interview. I've got to say that. Most sales managers are smart, they're hardworking, they want to do what's best for their company. But the problem is they only do one or two interviews. And I personally believe that you should do 3 interviews. In some cases, even more. If you're hiring for big ticket sales, but you should do 3 interviews. Because in the first interview, one of the things I can tell you that all good salespeople are good at, the number one product they know how to sell is themselves. They know how to put on the halo, the little angel's halo above their head, and to buff that halo up. And they know what to tell you. You'll say, hey, describe yourself to me. Oh, Harry, I'm high energy. Man, I get up at 5 o'clock every morning. I'm out there, I mow the lawn. And then at 6 o'clock, I start going through everything I've got to do that day. And I start lining up all the people I'm going to call on the phone. I'm going to hook up with on Zoom calls. I start outlining my sales calls. I start reading the product literature. And, they tell you this big song and dance. And, I work till 7 o'clock on the average, night. And part of it is their job when they're doing a sales interview. And it can be impressive, but it's not always 100% factual. We don't always see ourselves the way other people see us. So you want to do more than one interview, and you want to ask them some challenging questions. You can ask some questions that complement very well what the psychological tests pull out. You want to ask them, and you want to soften it too, because you don't want to come across like a drill sergeant. You don't want to come across like a detective. It has to be a friendly interview. You want them to show their best. You want them to shine. But ask them, I like to soften the questions by saying things like, no one's perfect in every area of sales. I'm pretty good in sales, but I'm not perfect in everything. And what are some of the areas that you are weakest in? And listen to what they say. And notice if there's a long pause there, or how much self-knowledge they have. Do they immediately come up with something? And say, and what are the areas that you are strongest in? And folks, really listen to that and ask yourself this question: is that really what we need? They say, I'm friendly, I'm extroverted, I'm outgoing, I'm high energy. In some kind of sales, like big ticket, high tech, technical sales, I'm working with a company like that right now. You don't necessarily want someone who's super high energy and just bubbling over with enthusiasm, because you're selling to doctors, you're selling to hospitals, you're selling to operating rooms. And it's kind of a challenging environment. It's kind of a sad environment. They see people die. They have to operate in very challenging conditions. And so you want to kind of match them at their level. You want to, this is a really good question. This is $1 million question I'm giving you here. Ask them about their last sales job and say, what did you like most about it? What did you like least about it? Why aren't you still there? George, why aren't you still there? And then ask them this question. This is a killer question. Tell me about your last sales manager. Tell me about your last sales manager. And if they say, oh, that guy was an SOB, he was terrible, he was a horrible listener, he didn't take any input, he drove us like slaves, then if you might pick up very early on, if you ask the right questions, this person's a complainer. They are a blamer. And you may not want to hire a person like that. Or maybe the sales manager really was terrible. You've heard other things about that sales manager. But you want to ask, some good penetrating questions about their sales background, of all the products and services you sold. Mary, what did you most enjoy selling? Why? And why was it? What did you least enjoy selling? You can learn so much from them. And then my last suggestion, which most sales managers have not thought of or done, is do the last interview at a restaurant and have them invite their spouse or their significant other. This is so eye-opening. I've done a number of these. Sometimes companies hire me to help them do interviews, and you learn so much about someone when you see them with their spouse or the significant other. Do they listen to their spouse? Do they cut their spouse off? How do they treat the waiter or the waitress? Are they rude? Are they friendly? Are they engaging? How do they just treat other people as you enter the restaurant, as you leave the restaurant? Are they watching other people in the restaurant? Are they just wrapped up in themselves? You can pick up so many cues when you take people out to a social environment. And now that we're getting over coronavirus, the economy's opening up, you can do this once again. This last year is pretty tough. It was pretty tough. So those are some things to do, in terms of finding and hiring the very best people for your business and for your team.
Well, that's great. I just got one more question and then we'll start to wrap it up. Mm-hmm. After you hire the best candidate, go through the process, what suggestions, if any, do you have in training them? Like, for example, is it important to have give them a model presentation with a proven script? So go along that path, because I know your expertise on scripting, and kind of take us in that direction for the last question here today.
Yeah, that's a great question, Harry. And I know you really believe in the power of model presentations. What you want to do, folks, when you train people is you want to give them training that's based on science. A lot of sales training is just kind of based on myths. It's like, here are the 5 steps to prospecting. Mm-hmm. Here are the 7 steps to closing. It's very rigid. It's very formulaic. And it's, I've worked with a lot of sales superstars in many different fields. And I've actually been hired by companies to expert model to figure out what are our sales champions doing that other people are not doing? And I build a model so that you can put what they're doing step by step into other people. So you want to do sales training that's based on some scientific research, or some kind of a solid research, rather than just something you pulled out of a 20-year-old, 30-year-old sales book. And you want to make the training fun. It should be engaging. Harry and I, we've done some sales training together. One of our companies, we work together there. And we always try to make the training fun, engaging, enjoyable. You want to have exercises. You don't want it to be just a lecture, a monologue of you up there talking about how much you know about salesmanship, salespersonship. You want to have exercises. Role playing is really powerful in training. And sometimes people will say, yeah, I got it. Or you can give them a pencil and paper test, and it looks like they got it. They have an intellectual understanding of it. But you want to actually have them role play using the model presentation, using a presentation that's based on what your superstars do out in the field. And when they role play it, okay, you're the customer, I'm the prospect. And you hit them with different objections, different questions. That's how you really find out how much they've learned. Do they have the verbal fluency? Are they light on their feet? Can they pivot when the customer goes in this direction, when the prospect goes in that direction? Can they change quickly? Do they know how to lighten the mood if it gets too serious? Do they know how to build trust quickly? Do they know how to uncover the client's needs, or are they coming across as a product pusher? So you do want to have a proven presentation. You don't want to just throw them out there and say, figure it out. Mary, you're smart. You could figure this out. You don't want them to use live prospects. You might have spent a fortune. Some companies spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars just generating prospects. Some companies spend tens of millions of dollars doing that. You don't want them to use live prospects as guinea pigs. So in your training, you want to practice these skills with one another. And if you do that, if you have live training, or it can be over Zoom, it doesn't always have to be live. There's something to be said for live training that's highly interactive, that's fun, that's engaging, it's based on research, that has a powerful, proven model that makes selling. You want to make selling easy for them. Folks, you want to make it easy for them to succeed. That's what I always try to do. That's how you're going to quickly produce very high quality and very self-confident salespeople, because you want them, when they go out there, you want them to feel bulletproof and 10 feet tall. You want them to feel like I can handle any objection that comes my way, any stall, because sometimes the objection is a stall. It's just a decision not to make a decision, where they say, I want to think about it. You want to make sure they have not just 2 or 3 responses, but 10 different responses, because there's 10 different kinds of personalities of people that they might encounter. And that's where things like the DISC and the bank personality profiling come into play, because if they're trained in that, then they will know how to recognize a highly dominant person, how to give them the kind of answer that they really respond to, or the person that needs a more entertaining, lighthearted answer, someone that just really is going to want to spend time with you, or the person that needs the factual answer. So you'll be able to give them just the right kind of answer they need, so that you can advance the sales conversation and move much closer to closing, or doing a pretrial close and then doing your final close. So folks, if you, in wrapping this up, if you do those 3 things, hire the very best people for your industry, use some great psychological tests, also test them for money hunger, you're going to hire the people that will excel at your kind of selling. Then give them the most powerful training possible, which may involve bringing in outside experts. Harry does corporate training. I do corporate training. One of the people that we work with, that you guys probably know, he's very famous now, Eric Lofholm. He does corporate training. Bring in an outside expert, because you cannot be an expert in every aspect of sales training. They're full-time people you can bring in to lighten your load. And so now they're making you a lot of money. You've got the best people for your industry. You've given them powerful training. They're probably getting a lot of sales for you, making your company a lot of money. And then your final challenge is to compensate them well financially. You don't have to break the bank, but reasonable compensation. And psychologically, give them those psychological vitamins, make them feel like $1 million, and you are going to have one of the best sales teams in your industry.
Well, I like that term, psychological vitamins. I'm gonna borrow that term, going for a long time. That was a good one there. There's something else you mentioned on this just a second ago, or you mentioned the having multiple responses and rebuttals to objections, rejections, or excuses. And it's interesting because I did when I was going, my history a little bit, I went door to door for many years and selling utilities, cable TV and internet and phone. And one of the things that I did is I kept track of all my numbers. I was really, really important for me. And over a 3-year period, I found that 80% of the sales that I made came only after I was able to overcome 4 or 5 objections, rejections, or excuses. So if I didn't have enough, so to speak, ammunition in my tool belt to overcome at least 4 or 5, I was leaving 80% of my income on the table. And so this is something we really keyed in on. I'm so glad you mentioned it, because we really keyed in on not only teaching our guys the formula, but making sure they had enough ammunition on how to overcome these objections. So thank you so much for that. And the whole the whole interview today. These are golden gems that you've given us, our audience today. And I know it's going to go a long way in their development. So I really appreciate your time. And I want to say goodbye to our audience here. Thank you so much for tuning in to Continuous Sales Improvement for Sales Managers and the Best Practices. We're here every Tuesday. Make sure you tell your friends, let your company know, let your associates know. They can get some unbelievable tips every week. So thank you very much, Dr. Donald Moine, for being our guest today. Thank you so much for listening. Be sure to subscribe to get notified of the latest episode. Also, to learn more about improving your sales team, visit continuoussalesimprovement for teams.com. See you in the next episode and have a great day.